Folks, we're back. This is Steve Sampson, Jim Jonas, for another episode of Veterans in Politics. Today we have a special guest for you, Ray Spencer. He's currently a homicide detective, lieutenant with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and he's a candidate for Las Vegas City Council Ward number 6, which is up in my area.
Yeah.
But I'm in the pocket of the county.
Right,
I'm surrounded by Ward 6. So
yeah. First off, I just want to thank you for coming on. And I don't really have any major rants. I just wanted to say it's more of like a public service announcement to let people understand that city council is so much more important than people realize. It's kind of like with family law. Most people don't care about it until it happens to them. And it's the same thing with city council. Like if you have an issue, immediate issue in your neighborhood, like your first contact should be city council. And people are so focused on whoever the president is that they don't realize how important their local officials are.
not this year. It's not going to be like that.
No. But I just want to make sure that people have the opportunity to realize what the city council does and what they can and cannot do. And especially since you work for Metro, how the city budget allocates to Metro is something that a lot of people don't understand as well. So again, the whole reason why Steve and I do this, it's not, trust me, it's not for personal wealth. It's because what we're trying to do is we're trying to educate the public and bring people in. And because Steve and I are political junkies by nature and want to do good by the public, we're trying to just get people to understand why it's important to pay attention to your local politicians. Because I've been saying this for a while. Like, there's too many people in the city and county and country that constantly complain about politicians. Oh, they're all crooks, they're all cheats. Well, you know what? Shame on all of us that vote for
The crooks
and the cheats. Because we are, in fact, their bosses. But if we don't take the time to interview them, and that's what voting is, it's an interview process. So, like, interview the person you want to vote for, and then vote for the right person, regardless of party. Yeah.
Well, we got Mr. Ray Spencer. How are you today, sir?
I'm real good,
Tell us about your bio. Give us a bio.
So I have kind of a unique story. I'll give you the kind of long version, but I moved here from Detroit when I was 3 years old. Okay. And my mom and dad, it's, like I say, unique. I lived in Canada for a short time while my dad was hiding out from the police. No, it's true.
Wait a minute, you're already starting off on the right foot.
I know, I kind of like this guy already.
You're being honest.
No, I did. It's
Sure you want to run for a political office?
You're going to get what you get, okay, with
There
me.
you go.
So,
What part of Canada?
Windsor, Ontario.
Oh, Ontario, okay.
Yeah, so we was born in Detroit, and right across the river is Windsor. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember it. I saw pictures, but, we stayed in a condo over there for 6 months while my dad was hiding out. And we ended up moving, grew up with a lot of criminal activity.
That's what makes you a good cop.
Well, it just gives me a different perspective. And there was a survey done, I forget how many years ago. It was with the LAPD, and they were trying to find out who would make a better undercover cop. Would it be an ex-gangbanger that doesn't have a criminal record because he never got caught, or somebody that went through Harvard? Right. And it's the ex-gangbanger who make a better undercover detective. Yeah.
The Harvard guy is good at sitting behind the desk. Right.
And, so we moved out here, and it was kind of a struggle in the sense, my dad, when I talk about my dad, he did 7 years in prison for murder.
And you're a homicide.
And I'm the homicide lieutenant. And
lieutenant detective, same, right?
Same. I oversee all the detectives and sergeants, right?
Okay.
So, but at the end of the day, I'm the head detective.
Okay,
is the best way to say it. So we we move out to Las Vegas in 1980, and at the time we're moving around from weekly motel, lived at multiple weekly motels, which is now basically they've turned in, it was Paradise Resort Inn, now it's Seagull Suites, or I learned how to swim when I was living at the Glass Pool Inn, if you can picture that on the Strip. And it was a unique environment for a little kid. I mean, I knew at an early age what drugs were. I knew, I watched a SWAT team deploy off of a truck at 5 years old and thought they were coming to our house, like things that you'll never forget. And my mom, thankfully, said, you know what, we're not going to have this. You're not going to grow up this way. And my mom separated from my dad when I was 5, and it's behind the Lazy Boy furniture at Tamarisk and Flamingo. I remember getting pulled in 2 directions as a kid, and my mom's like, "You're
family court stuff as well."
No, there was no family. There was no. It wasn't him.
Mom just took over.
Said, "Mom's taking me." That's how that went down. And I went with my mom and watched my mom as a single. She raised me. By herself for most of my childhood, and went to school here. We went to E.W. Griffith, grew up here, and went to CVT Gilbert, and went to Gibson Middle School, and finally got some stability in middle school. And it's funny, walking in here, it's like I had a deja vu moment across the street. It's, I spent a good chunk of my high school years in the parking lot across the street.
Where did you go to high school?
Western.
Okay, we can't be friends anymore. Yeah. So I graduated from Clark.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
He doesn't like you either.
Yeah, Western, it's...
Western and Clark, it's kind of a rivalry. I like joking around about it. Yeah.
No, watched my mom as a kid. She delivered pizzas at night at Tropicana Pizza. Used to work at the Review Journal in the classified section. So you see the struggle as a kid. Like, I knew early on that I'm like, all right, I can't be struggling. And I delivered pizza. I delivered flyers for years at Tropicana Pizza starting at age 12, which is right down here at Flamingo.
That sounds familiar. That's my brother Mark delivered flyers for them as well.
Okay.
Let's go pizza.
Or Let's Go Pizza.
Okay. And then, so worked at Albertsons at Westcliff and Rainbow for years. And then I went to college and ended up going to the best school in the state of Nevada.
UNLV?
No, it's 440 miles north of here at UNR. And I went to college at UNR. And
so you went to Cannon blue then, huh?
Here's the funny part. The Cannon's blue, but then I'm all UNLV basketball. Okay. Like my kids are a little confused. Like, why are we root Wolfpack for?
This is very interesting. I mean, let's talk about Dad a little bit, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Was it self-defense or?
No.
Was it a hit or was it cold-blooded?
It's when you grow up, both his parents died before, when he was a kid and he was in Gate. I mean, it's Detroit, Michigan. Yeah. And, he grew up at 7 Mile in Woodward in Detroit and went to prison. And, that's, it's some of the activity that he was involved in.
Did that motivate you to be a cop?
I'll tell you what motivates me, and this is the struggle I see as a police officer. As a kid, I knew the activity my dad was in, but I never heard my dad talk negative about the police. Like when I walk as a cop and I go into some of our, challenging neighborhoods and you hear little kids saying, pig or insulting, that never happened to me as a kid. Like he knew, I think we've lost a lot of the respect. At least he still had respect for law enforcement. Yeah. At least, or he hid it from me,
right?
And so, in that sense, and he even told me at a young age, because, I always wanted to be a cop, and he's like, go be a cop. Like that was still encouraged.
Did you go visit him in prison?
No, so he was in prison before, he's been in prison multiple times. He ended up dying when I was 12, but even after the time we were separated, from the time my mom moved out at, when I was 5 till he died when I was 12. He died at 42.
What took him?
Drugs.
So he was mixed up in that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What kind?
I would say crack cocaine, marijuana. I don't. And some of this, was kept from me. Some of this I learned as I get older. But I knew.
You earn my respect a little bit more hearing about your dad.
Yeah.
And then how you saw all of that and you just turn out the opposite?
Well, there's also, it's important that you have people in your life that can guide you to staying out of trouble. Because
you think he guided you to be a police officer?
I don't know if he guided me. I know my mom did not. If my mom doesn't get me out of that situation, I'm not here talking to you today. Right. I mean,
you could have been doing the same thing.
Right. I mean, that's why you look at, and I guess he'd be my second cousin, my cousin's son, who, he just went to prison for home invasion and robbery, things that, I've tried. When you try to make an impact on kids' lives, you can only do what you can do. But, when they're 400 or 2,000 miles away, it's hard. But, you see people when they're in unfortunate situations, it's important that you have some kind of role model or somebody. And for me, even in high school, you go back, it was the Kappa League. Right. Like, I got involved in sports. I was involved in the Kappa League. That's, at least I had things to keep me busy, because when kids aren't busy, they get in trouble.
Yeah. You have any siblings?
Nope, only child.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you feel growing up being the only child and mom and dad is split up, dad is in prison? I mean, how did that work on your psyche?
Well, as an only child, I don't know how to share real well.
You don't play well in the family.
I don't share, right? I never had to, it's funny with my kids, like now I teach them to share. I never had to share. I got 2.
Okay. How old?
But 12 and 13.
Oh, okay.
So, you see it. Like I knew, drugs destroyed my life basically as a kid. Like I saw what it did to my family as a kid. So, it's like, I remember playing, football and sports in high school, and I'd be the only guy not high in a huddle. Right. I'm like, it's not going to be me. I'm not going down that road. Right. And that's why I was either going to be a cop or a pilot.
Okay.
And, now I'm kind of too old to be a pilot. So.
Yeah. Never too old. Unless they have an age.
Yeah, there's some age restrictions.
I've seen some old pilots in there.
True.
My dad always wanted to be a pilot. Okay. That was his dream too.
So I went to college in Reno, and it was funny because I was living up there in the dorms. Okay. And, you talk about trying to pay the bills, and, I'm working as I'm living in the dorms, trying to go to school, and the police department was testing. And I'm like, let me see how I do. And, I'm 20 years old and I get hired. Okay. And that's kind of how the story started. So I ended up working up in Reno for just over 4 years.
So you was with the Reno Police Force?
Sparks Police. Which, if you're familiar with the area. Yeah. So I worked up there, and that's where I met my wife. Okay. And after 4 years, I kind of, my family, all my friends are back here in Vegas, and that's what brought me back to Vegas.
How long you been a police officer?
It's almost...
Altogether with Sparks?
24 years.
How come you didn't run for sheriff?
Not for me.
Okay.
Yeah. And, obviously, you got to get the buy-in of your significant other. And my wife, she definitely didn't want me to be sheriff.
It's a lot of stress being a sheriff.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
And, I'll tell you, I love law enforcement. I've done a lot of positive things in my career. And, you have to look at, I see a lot of things that most people don't see every day. Right. Every day I go to work, I see, I deal with murder 40 hours a week, or probably 60 to 80 hours a week. Prior to that, I oversaw the Internet Crimes Task Force. So I was dealing with kids getting exploited on the internet. For, a good chunk of my career, I dealt with child sex crime victims and adult sex crime victims. So the biggest impact, I'll tell you, is, I was the incident commander at the Route 91 shooting. Okay. And, you can only take so many traumatic incidences before you're like, okay, let me take a deep breath.
How long you been a homicide detective?
So 4 years this month.
You must have seen a lot.
I have seen a lot.
Yeah, more than your share.
Yeah, well, you figure I go on every murder investigation that we respond to. So
how does that affect your psyche?
You have to...
You numb it, or?
You become I'd be lying if I said I'm numb to all of it.
Yeah, you would be.
Okay.
Because I've been there.
Right. It's the things you look back on, and, like I said, the Route 91 thing, I'll never forget some of those details that night. Right. Homicide investigations, the kid cases, there's nothing you can do. It's like you watch, and it shows, you watch some of the news interviews that I do when kids are getting murdered, and you can see the anger and upsetness. I can't hide that. So,
what was the youngest homicide victim you've seen?
Well, I had the mom who stabbed and murdered both her 1-year-old and 2-year-old here last year during COVID. And that was, just, unbelievable. And I mean, I've had there's some horrific cases that, would drive people. And so I'll tell you, if there's any question, if anybody has a doubt about postpartum depression, I can tell you, I mean, as a guy who investigates this, it is a real problem.
So PTSD does exist.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here, I'll give you the example. And we talk about Route 91. I got shot at for what seemed like an eternity. And behind, trying to, as the guy responsible.
So you were there while he was still shooting?
Oh, I was there. Yes. I was the on-scene incident commander. So, yeah, when it first started, I thought it was fireworks. Okay. And, I went body to body to body to body looking for survivors. And all I saw were cell phones ringing in people's pockets. Like, it's a horrific scene that you think of. So when you talk about, PTSD, oh, absolutely. I mean, even me, after that, I mean, the next 4th of July is obviously a little stressful when you.
Do you remember the Stanley Gibson shooting?
I do.
And I had a conversation with Doug Gillespie about CIT training being mandatory instead of voluntary.
Okay.
Is it mandatory in the academy?
I believe it's mandatory in the academy.
Okay.
Not 100% sure, but I mean, I'm years out of the academy, but
right.
I went voluntarily probably 2000.
And folks, CIT is a critical incident training.
Yes.
To teach you how to talk the assailant down.
Yes.
Right. Instead of using your verbal communication, instead of using your,
Yeah. It was, and it was 40 hours when I went through it. I think it's longer now, but it's a great presentation and you get to see and actually interact with people. And I thought it was very beneficial. It's been 12, 13 years.
How about veterans on driver's license? Does that help officers to identify vets in case there's some type of, because the whole, when I introduced and testified that bill in the legislature when it came out. That idea came from the Stanley Gibson shooting.
Okay.
Does that help officers on the ground to de-escalate a situation when they see veterans on the driver's license? Does that help at all?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, if you're dealing with a veteran, though, you should be able to take a step back and kind of see, is there some, and it's not just specifically veteran. Anytime you're dealing with somebody who's kind of in an emotional crisis, you need to be able to take a step back and de-escalate and breathe for a second and see what the next step is.
You went through the CIT course.
I did.
So how did that help you to de-escalate situation?
Well, the biggest thing I recall when I went through it, and like I said, we're talking 2006, 2000, no, it might even be before that for me, is that they introduced us to people that we could call, because police officers aren't trained to deal with people in mental illness.
Especially when you have 22, 3-year-old on the force.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even just that. I mean, my main question is like, Steve has done a really good job and been a strong advocate for helping try to get it to where, police can identify a veteran with the driver's license and things of that nature. But, I mean, how much more do we ask cops to do? I mean, it's a tough job is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And so, I have plenty of issues, right? and Steve knows. No, and I fully, so here's
we all got issues, right?
He got plenty though.
Yeah. And I'm a complete full disclosure on my issues. So, and I brought them up on previous shows. I'm not going to tonight. But so basically what I'm trying to say is how do cops deal with that? I just felt like cops are in a bad spot. They're in a bad situation. I'm not saying every cop is a good cop, but they're in a tough spot.
I'm going to tell you, you hit the nail on the head with what you just said, and you kind of glossed over it, but it's so accurate. You have a 22, 23-year-old kid. What life experience does that 22 or 20?
Yeah.
Zero. Okay. And you look back and I'll give you an example. It's off topic, but it goes to the same thing. Yeah. One of the first calls I remembered was I had a 2-year-old. This was up in Reno. 2-year-old is missing, right? Or he's found in the middle of the street. It's like 3:00 in the morning. It's winter in Reno. He's walking down the street. I'm 21 years old. I'm a brand new cop, right? Okay. Oh my God, where's this kid? And I remember some senior officer who, I say senior, he's probably my age now, right? But in my head, he's some old officer who's been on for 20 plus years. He comes up, he's all calm, cool, collected, and he goes, all right, here's what we're going to do. And he tells me, he's like, we just need to get a bunch of cops over here and drive up and down the street and find the door that's open. And I'm like, the door that's open? And he goes, yeah, find the door that is left open. This kid walked out of a house. Kids open the door. No kid closes the door. And sure enough, we walk 200 yards. We find a door open, wake up the family, and they're like, oh my God, where's little Timmy? You got that from a guy who had 25 years of experience. A 22-year-old kid who was born, I'll pick Iowa, grew up in Des Moines, Iowa, comes to Las Vegas, joins the police department, and now you're asking that 22-year-old, hey, I need you to handle this call, and you don't have those tools. You don't have 25 years of experience. It's a lot to demand. We have people that have 8-year degrees that struggle with some of these issues.
So do you think it's a lack of training then? Do you think that they need more training, and how would they go about that before we need to get into your campaign?
Yeah, no, I understand.
Just because you're a wealth of knowledge, I'm just trying to pick your brain a little bit.
I can tell you, the academy now is like 26 weeks. There's so much training that goes into it. But again, you got to go back to kind of what you said. You need some practical life experience. Just because, I could be a UNLV professor that studied criminal law and teach it for 40 years, and nothing about dealing with people and dealing with.
Just like I was talking about the gangbanger that never got caught as a cop, and the Harvard student that became a cop. Who's going to make the better undercover cop? The gangbanger.
Right.
Well, I'll give the viewers and listeners a good example. So I have 2 college degrees, and I can tell you right now, Steve is smarter than me.
Don't say that. Smart in different ways.
Yeah, in different ways, but that's what I'm saying, though. He has more life experience. I said that because I didn't want to pick on his age,
So when I pistol whip him, you didn't see anything, okay?
Right.
No, I was outside.
Okay.
I was outside.
All right.
So you are going to replace Tom Roberts, who. No, sorry. I'm thinking about 80-13.
Michelle Fury.
You're going to replace Michelle Fury in this coming election. You notice how I said that you're going to replace Michelle Fury in this coming election. So you got a lot of work to do if I say that, right?
Yeah, I'm confident. A lot of work. A lot of door knocking.
So how could you bring your years of policing to the city council?
So when you look at the first thing when you deal with city council, more than half the budget is public safety.
Right.
So do you want someone on city council that doesn't have a public safety background? You need some people on the council that have some background that one can say, no, Metro could do it this way, or there's another option. So you're not just closed-minded. You have some different opinions coming in.
Although Stavros Anthony is there, but he's going to be.
But he's leaving.
He's leaving.
Right.
Yeah.
And, but that's, he has that knowledge. Mm-hmm. And I think, when you bring in that public safety background, that is a huge advantage. Mm-hmm. And being a 25-year cop isn't every tool that I'm going to have for city council. I'll tell you the thing that's going to make me successful is what I'm good at is leadership. Because you can't, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. Just sitting here, I can tell you, right? Like what's made me successful in the assignments that I've worked in is I'm able to find people that know what they're doing. And I'll talk about, some of my successes, right? I lead the United States in homicide solvability rate. There is no other major city law enforcement agency in the entire country that has a higher solvability rate.
Isn't it something like 97, 98 or something like that?
I wish it was that high. I'm trying to get above 95.
How high? I heard 97, 98
no,
as far as solved murders.
Yeah, it's 90. It's between 92 and 93%.
That's pretty high.
Which is unheard of. Okay. I teach around, I've taught at 2 major city chiefs conferences, teaching law enforcement chiefs from across the country on things that I've implemented here that they can implement there to solve murders. Because when you have Baltimore that's solving 30%, and last week I had
30%.
Yeah, some of these agencies are.
That's a failing grade.
The national average is 62%. So when you look at the national average and we're at 92%, it's unheard of. So that's just one example. I look at some of the things I've done when I took over the Nevada State Internet Crimes Task Force. Just a brief rundown is it's a multi-agency task force that for the whole state dealing with child exploitation. And when I got there, the FBI couldn't work with Homeland Security. Homeland Security didn't like the FBI. Henderson couldn't work with Metro. All these problems, right? But at the end of the day, when you get the right people in there, by the time I left, it was a well-oiled machine, and they're doing still to this day great work.
So you're good at diplomacy.
Well, you have to be.
Okay.
I mean, you can't come,
and working together, and that's important on the council.
It's huge on the council. And it's, when you talk about, I think most people, this is Ray logic, right? I think most people are in the middle and want to get things done. Right. Okay, you're always going to have people over here, and you're always going to have people over here.
Right, sure.
You may say something that I might not agree with, and okay, we can agree to disagree, or I can talk with you and take your ideas and implement it, or you see what I'm saying? And that's what I think most people want. And they want to be safe in their neighborhood. And, when I talk, I look at some of the things that are happening. Like if you told me 10 years ago, some things that I'm seeing happen in Seattle would make their way here, I would have told you there's no way. Right. And now we have Seattle, things that are happening in Portland, Seattle, and San Francisco are making their way to Vegas. For example, I have more than 50 murder suspects out on house arrest. So, let that sink in for a minute, right? When you look at some of these, different policies and different things that are,
they're suspects. They're not found guilty yet.
That is true.
Okay.
That is true. But what you have to look at is, and I'll give you an example. I had a murder case the other day that it could have been the victim or the suspect, I don't remember which one, had 151 arrests out of California. And
what happened to the 3 strikes law?
Yeah, there's no, you're seeing some of these, a lot of different things that we're seeing that I think, is there compromise between the two? Just is 3 strikes the answer, or how about some common sense and leadership? Right. And there's no, one paintbrush isn't going to handle everything.
Well, it's kind of the same thing with DUI laws. So, the third one's supposed to be a felony, but after 7 years, you're outside of that. So that's why you hear in the news all the time about this guy had 15 DUI convictions, but just because by the time he got to his third, it would have sent him to prison.
Right.
It was outside of the 7 years, so that did away with the first one.
And if he was smart, he would have got that record sealed.
Yeah. Right?
There are, that's an option.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and the reason why I brought that up is just because, people don't really understand how the law works. So when they see stuff like that, like 151 convictions or whatever, they're like, how the hell does this happen?
Right.
But that's why.
But it's kind of, you talked about it in your intro, right? People are not they're not involved. They don't know. Right. That's why, I'll be honest with your guys' show, this is a great thing because you're taking the steps to educate people, which I wish people would educate themselves on who they vote for.
And it's live right now, so I can't edit it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So, Lieutenant Spencer, when are you retiring?
May 26th.
Are you going to have a big shindig?
I'm definitely going to have a party. The problem,
Jim invited?
Well, I'm going to have a big invite list. So, yeah, I might even do a big public thing at a park.
Oh, really?
We'll see.
It is a little warm in May.
Yeah, the problem I'm having, this is the problem, is I'm running a campaign, and that's right before...
make it a fundraiser.
Tell us about the campaign. I mean, what have you been doing thus far? Or you can't do anything until, or
no, I'm kidding. Yeah, I mean, right now, this is the 2.5 months I've been in politics is drinking water through a fire hose, right? I mean, that's the best way I can describe it. I'm not a I sit there,
you summed it up.
Okay, but I'm
just be careful, because I'm going to be honest with you. Like Steve already knows, it's my trigger. Do not say you're not a politician. You're running for
a
political office, right. So you're just not maybe a polished politician yet. But you'll get there. You just need to hire the right guy.
Well, but I've been a lifelong cop, right? So, going into the world of politics, I mean, it's a learning experience is the best way I can sum it up.
Right.
I personally want to see you win. To tell you the truth, I did a lot of reading on you.
Okay.
What I could find on the internet.
Okay.
And your wife's adorable. So usually people that have somebody that's way out there crazy, or they just don't want their significant other to run for office, and she seems like she's all in for you to win this thing.
She is.
So how are you going to make? Tell us where Ward 6 is, and tell us what issues or concerns you believe that's in that area.
So Ward 6 is the northwest part of the valley. So basically it's going to be Lone Mountain to the north, Decatur to the west. It goes all the way up US 95, and it makes this weird little jump over in Sky Canyon and Providence. Right. So all of Sky Canyon and parts of Providence are Ward 6. The number one issue is public safety. If you look at the city's budget, and their number one issue is public safety. And when you look at some of the things, and you don't got to take my word for it. Look at just your Ring doorbell app, right? It's every day. It's, your car's getting broken into, your packages are getting stolen. And, the biggest tale that I don't think people realize, do you know where the Capriati's is there? And I never can say the name. Osha, the new Japanese steakhouse. It's at Durango.
Durango and
I was going to say that's Steve's neighborhood.
Yeah. Durango and that street.
Sky. It's not Sky Point.
No, it's not Sky Point. It's like going towards. You could take that to Kyle Canyon if you want.
Yes,
that street.
Yes,
I know exactly where you're.
What's the name of the restaurant? It's not Ice.
Hashibab, or
it's the
one that cooked the food in front of you. Yeah.
My kids make fun of me because I call it Osaka, and they're like, Ohana, I call it. And they're like, it's not Ohana. You're not, like, my kids are making fun of it, but it's something like that. So across the street from that is a Metro mobile crime camera.
Yes.
Okay.
Were they supposed to build those two empty lots that's on the north and south of Durango? Aren't they supposed to build a college campus? CSN supposed to be there. That's been slated for them for years, and I haven't seen any.
The sign's been up there for 15 years. Yeah. There's
you gotta fix that.
Well, it's actually Ward 4 now, but I tell you, if we're not going to build a school there, we need to build something there. And one of the things that I want to bring to the Northwest is something like downtown Summerlin, like an outdoor pedestrian shopping and restaurant village.
Yeah, I like that.
So that way I don't have to, Uber back from $25 an Uber bill from downtown Summerlin, or going up to Red Rock. So I think, there's a lot of things that we can bring to the Northwest to enhance the community. Mm-hmm. And that's just, one of the things.
You have a lot of rurals over there. A lot of horse property is over there as well.
I back up to horse property, and it's one of the things I love up there.
And one thing that I brought this up to Bob Beers, and I brought this up to the Board of County Commissioners when Marilyn Kirkpatrick was the president, is that they have all these financial incentives. If you change your sod out to desert, the city would give you money to do that, and the water district will probably give you an incentive, right? And then if you put panels on top of your roof, you get a tax break with the IRS, right? And then you get a credit back with NV Energy. Depends on how much power you generate versus what you use. Yep. But how come they don't do that with septic? Because there's a lot of areas up there that's on septic. The incentive to go to sewer. And the reason why I say that is because so they could collect all that well water that a lot of these homes have that's on septic, because a lot of the homes that's on septic is also on well, and try to get some of that well water into the Lake Mead, because when they recycle, but they can't recycle that if it's just septic. So we needed some type of incentive to move from septic to sewer.
No, I can tell you the only experience I have with that is my uncle, and it wasn't here in Vegas. He got annexed by the city, and they now told him he had to go from septic to sewer, and I think it was like $12,000 or some.
I've been here in 18 to 30.
Okay, yeah,
Because
this is years ago.
The street, and they put the flag guys out, and all that craziness going on.
Yeah, it's a lot of money for a homeowner to.
Yeah, we need some type of incentive.
Right.
You think you could work on that?
Well, that I don't know, because you're in the county. You're in a county pocket, right? Anything septic is county.
They don't have no city areas that are in septic. No, it's a pocket of the county.
So my understanding is all the city, because in the city, is all part of your city tax dollars go to city sewer.
Right.
So, I mean, could I be wrong? Obviously I could, but my understanding is it's only in the county.
All right, how about this? How about you working with the county to get that done?
But
since you have pockets
but I think most,
of county in Ward 6.
I think most people in the county, like I can tell you the people who, it's weird, right? I'm in the city. My back wall, there's big acre lots that are behind me.
Right.
They don't want to be in the city. That's why they're saying
I just want the dollars to move from septic to sewer.
Right. No, I get it.
I don't care who gives it to me, city or county.
Yeah.
It's all green to me.
Yeah. Well, here, you brought up another thing that, when you look at, and it's not in the city's realm, it's water district. But for example, I have 2,000 square feet of grass. This is my house, right? On the side of my house, before I bought it, someone planted 2,000 square feet. The only thing that grass is used for is for my dogs to pee on it, right? They don't use it. And I want to rip it out. And I wanted to take advantage of the $3 rebate. But I can't unless I plant desert landscaping.
Yep.
I know,
I went through the same thing.
It makes no sense. So this is why, when you talk about why I'm right, I'm frustrated because who makes these laws, right?
I'm still wondering that.
But if I want to rip out 2,000 square feet of grass and I want to put whatever.
Concrete.
Or just regular, just pebbled rock down.
Well, I wanted to put a basketball court for my kids to play basketball. It's the perfect size, right? And I'm like, well, if you do the math, that's $6,000. I can put a basketball court and I don't have to waste all this water on the side of my house. And then I learned, they're like, no, you got to put vegetation. I'm like, well, I'm using no water with my concrete.
So you throw up a palm tree somewhere.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You get what it's frustrating.
There's so many loopholes because I tried to do the same thing and they told me the same thing. Right. They're like, oh, okay, well, and then they came out, they reviewed my yard. And they're like, okay, and then there's different thresholds of the grass still has to be alive. You still have to have a sprinkler system in place. And there's just a bunch of stuff. And it actually ends up almost costing you more money to go through them than if you just did it yourself.
Okay. So one of the things a city council person does is to appoint a planning commission. Mm-hmm. What would you look for in an appointment for a planning commission?
Well, you definitely want to bring in people that have expert in planning, right? You think, it's an important part of the commission, obviously. You want people that have a background, but I think the biggest thing is that you want people that are not connected to special interest. And I think that when I look into when I've got involved in the politics, I think that's one of the frustrating things is that you see, are people looking out for your best interest or are they looking out for their own or a special interest? So obviously somebody who has a background that in long-term planning is important, but you also want to make sure you don't have someone who's influencing your decisions for their own special needs.
Another item that the city council appoints, but they appoint this one as a body, is a vacancy on the muni bench. What would you look for in a candidate that
you'd vote for to be appointed to the muni bench if there becomes a vacancy. Like there was just a vacancy the other day. I forgot Karen off of the Justice Court. She just decided to resign abruptly. I forgot Kearns, I think is.
Yeah.
What would you look for if there was a vacancy on the muni bench in a candidate?
Well, I can tell you, you want somebody obviously who's going to be fair. I mean, the most important thing is fairness, and that's where you have to take a step back, even as a cop, right? You can't have somebody who is so pro-police that then, if I have my family member, you can't just be like everybody. You have to have somebody with some discretion, some life experience that, again, can see it both ways. But at the same token, I don't want someone that's just going to let everybody out and just going to allow a revolving door in the criminal justice system, which we do see in a lot of judge appointments.
Or do you, based on the body that's already in place, how do you see yourself working with that body if certain individuals win their seat and the other individuals is going to be there for, like, the mayor is the mayor up? No, she's not up. No. How do you see yourself in working as a cohesive unit with the current council?
So I think the number one thing that I think all of us as residents and constituents and as a candidate, I want professionalism. Mm-hmm. That's going to be number one. Like for myself, I work very well, and I kind of touched base on it, on how I work with others. So I don't see any issues with me working with any of the people that are currently on the council. Mm-hmm. And if I did, I'd still have to figure out a way to work with them. And that's, it's part of the problems we see right now is that, people, you draw this line in the sand and, there's no compromise. There's no working together. But personally, I'm going to be able to work with the people on the mayor and the current council.
So I got one more. I got a question for you. And this is something I think is very important for the city council. And so the city councilman, I won't name his name. I might as well, because he's not running, right? For re-election, Knudsen. I don't necessarily agree, and he's the city councilman for.
No, he just won his seat.
Yeah,
2 years ago, I think.
Yeah. So and here's the thing: like politically, I don't agree with Knudsen on everything, but he's very responsive. Mm-hmm. I mean, anytime, and trust me, like Steve is relentless. Like if Steve Sanson wants something, he's gonna get it, right? Fine, so he's always blowing up the phone, right? But I don't mean that in a bad way. But Knudsen always, and I've called him up too on certain issues because he's my now after redistricting, he's my city councilman now too. And so, what are you gonna do to be responsive to the people in Ward 6 when you do get elected?
I just wanted to add on Brian Knudsen. He what I look in a city, anybody, any elected, that they respond to their constituents.
Yeah.
And Brian responds immediately.
Yeah.
And he takes care. He just doesn't just respond and give you lip service. He actually takes care of the issue that he's responding to.
That's what you want. Right? And I will tell you, that is one of the things, between transparency and responsiveness, I think are extremely important. So when when I'm sitting on city council, I'll be retired, right? So I can work as a full-time city councilman without another job. And you're going to have an immediate response. And I tell people that as I'm campaigning. I give you my card, I give you my number. It's going to be the same number that when I'm on the council, it's still my same phone number. So there's nothing, and it's the same thing I do at work, right? Even uncomfortable conversations. So let's just say you're calling to yell at me because I did something that you don't agree with. I still need to have that conversation with you.
I'd rather come to your office and yell at you.
Yeah. We can yell. We can talk in person, right? But I agree 100%. There's nothing more frustrating when you can't get to talk, especially an elected official.
What's your nationality?
So I'm half black and I'm half white.
Okay.
So
that's a good mix.
It is a good mix.
Because I'm the same way.
Okay. No.
Get out of here. You're not
sure.
half.
You're 28% black.
That's true. We did an Ancestry.com on it.
Sorry, I'm just joking around, but yeah, I know.
No, I did one too. It's
my daughter on Martin Luther King Day a couple of years ago, when she found out that what the Ancestry.com came, she goes into school and said, "I'm 14%," because she took the half of the 28.
Right.
She said she's 14%.
Yeah. Same my kids. They're 25%. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Ray Spencer, do you have anything that you want to add that we missed? You want to talk about?
No, first, I truly want to thank both of you, because as I'm getting involved in...
Is this your first interview?
It is my first interview.
There you go.
So it's one of the things that frustrates me is when I talk to so many people, right? And you talk to them and people have no clue about politics. You know, they're like, "Oh, what does city council do?" Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, a good friend of mine, right? And I talk with her. She's like, "I just got to be honest. What do you do, right?
Do potholes."
Yeah, stoplights, stop signs. Right?
Well, they don't. To be fair, like to most people, they don't even know that you do that.
True. So I just, the thing I want people to realize is that, I'm moving on to a next stage because I want to improve our community. Right. Okay. I'm retiring. I don't have to work. I could go get another, and if I chose to work, I can go get another very lucrative job on the Strip.
At a casino.
That I don't want to do. Right. I want to, I've grown up here. The city has been very good to me, and I want to improve our city. And I see some things that I can make a huge impact. And, the biggest thing is that everyone's going to know that, one, my integrity is paramount, in that I'm going to be representing their family as much as I'm representing my own family. And that's the important thing that I want everybody, or all your viewers, to know as well.
Okay. Well, Mr. Ray Spencer, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Mark is going to zoom in on you, and then you could go ahead and you could tell people why they need to go to the polls and vote for you and your point of contact.
Okay. So, everybody, I think the biggest thing that I'm learning in this is that one vote, your one vote, can make all the difference. And going out and voting for me, I'm asking you because I believe I'm the best candidate, and I'm going to represent you and your family as well as I'm going to represent my own family. And I ask for your support on June 14th when it comes to election time. If you have any questions, you can reach me at ray@electrayspencer.com, or you can reach me at 702-401-1301.
Well, thank you, Mr. Spencer. Jim, thank you. Folks, that's Ray Spencer, and he is currently the head honcho lieutenant for Metro's Homicide Detective, and he's going to be retiring in May, and he wants to be your next city councilman for Ward number 6, and I like the guy. What I don't like is his opponent, and if anybody wants to know about his opponent, give me a call, and I'll be more than happy to tell you everything about his opponent. And by the time I get done telling you about his opponent, you're going to want to put Ray Spencer in office.
I gotta add something then on that. Full disclosure is Steve doesn't vote in our endorsement interview process, so.
I support Ray Spencer personally. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jones for Veterans in Politics. Until next time.